Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Traveled Back in Time and Changed, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Unknown location, somewhere in Earth Country. A man sounding like a snake was conversing with a much smaller and older man. He passed a file over to the old geezer and let him read the information contained within the bindings of the folder. SSO, can I count of your SS support? The slithering voice said. The little man nodded. Indeed, I have 2 teams heading there now. Let me hear what you have planned. Otogakure, hidden underground base. Dozu, Zako and Kin were waiting in a dark and dingy underground base. Kabuto was standing behind them when chills ran down their spines all of a sudden. The shadows seemed to slither before golden, slitted eyes appeared in the darkness of the torchlit chamber. You 3, my precious little experiments. You will be going to the Chunin exams in Konoha. You will make it to the finals or SS suffer my wrath. In the SS second SS stage, you will test Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto S's Senju. If they are weak, you will kill them. The slithery voice said. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. You will be done. The 3 answered on bended knee with their fists over their heart. Very good, Kabuto, you and your team will participate as well. Make your move in the SS second SS stage, it will take place in the Forest of Death. Kabuto, SS share what you know with Thes 3. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. Naruto Senju is 13 years old and is the grandson of Tsunade Senju, son of Minato Namikaze, who was actually the lost Senju, and Kushina Uzumaki, the last princess of Whirlpool. He is ranked highly among the genin, but the specifics on his abilities and strengths are unknown. I cannot even get mission reports related to him. He is highly skilled at fuinjutsu based on his family's seals and activities. Medical jutsu is a given since he was raised by Tsunade. He is the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune and he hosts workout sessions that leave the legendary Might Guy tired. Use extreme caution when approaching him. Kabuto rattled off the list of unknowns. Orochimaru frowned, making his snake face look even creepier. That is a lot of unknowns for one of my most SS skilled spears. I expect better from you, Kabuto. Kabuto bowed. My apologies, Lord Orochimaru. The kid is heavily guarded, almost never alone, and all information related to him is locked down like a SS rank secret. Regardless, we will not let him interfere with our plans, Orochimaru said with finality. Tsuchikage's office, Land of Earth. Onoki called for his genin teams and 2 of the teams were in front of him. His daughter was 14 and she was already on track to go to the Jonin exams in the next year or 2. However, he needed her skills for this mission, so she was demoted to genin. She understood the importance of her mission. The Senju boy was making too many waves already and he needed to be dealt with. Okay, you 6 will be going to the Chunin exams in Konoha. Kuretsuki, your team will be led by Han. Do not draw too much attention to yourselves, go to the exams, make it to the finals and find an opportunity to remove Naruto Senju from the equation. Onoki said with venom. Han spoke up, are the rumors true? Is he really the son of the Namikaze? This got heads turning from all the genin except Kuretsuki. She had already been informed. Yes, I cannot tell you what we have planned due to those pesky security seals. Just make it to the Chunin exam finals and your follow-on mission will be given to you before the finals. Kuretsuki punched one of her fists into her open palm. Leave it to us, old man. I will melt him. Border of Fire Country and Lightning Country. 2 teams of Kumo genin were being escorted by the Raikage and their Jonin sensei to the border of Fire Country. I had enjoyed the help from Naruto, the neighborhood watch and the alliance with Konoha. The benefits to Kumo overall were tremendous and his people were happier with his reign as Raikage, and he was already being hailed as the greatest Raikage ever. He puffed out his chest as his pride swelled and he looked down on his 2 teams of genin. Alright, Team Yugito and Team Darui, I expect you to go and represent the might of Kumo. Conduct yourselves with honor and make it to the finals where we can show off Kumo's progress to the world. Samui, your side mission still stands, but no need to rush anything. Yugito, I would also encourage you to get closer to the Senju boy. He is going to become the key player in the elemental nations as he comes of age, and I think he could help you with Matatabi. Samui, write to your boyfriend in that scroll and let him know you will be there tomorrow evening. Also, tell him that I wish to order 100 communication scrolls by the exam finals. The teams bowed to their Rakage. Yes, Lord Rakage. Very good. Travel safe and have fun. I am proud of each of you, I said as he waved them off. The following evening at the Senju estate. The Senju compound was positively bustling with life in a way Tsunade hadn't seen since before the Third Great War. The Suna and Wave additions were just the start as Naruto informed them that the Kumo teams, the Wind Daimyo and the Fire Daimyo would also be staying with them in between the second and third rounds of the exams. Naruto had clones running around everywhere being directed by clones of Tsunade as they played host to an ever-growing family. As Tsunade was stressing over preparing the guest houses, she felt the alarm seal on her bracelet activate, which meant that somebody was at the front gate. She decided to greet the newcomers on her own since she just sent Naruto on an errand run to grab more supplies in town. Tsunade gave a hug to Omoi and Samui, since she knew them from their time in the exchange program. Unfortunately, Omoi had lost his built-up immunity to Tsunade's beauty and this hug caused blood to trickle from his nose before he fell unconscious with a goofy grin on his face. He was forcibly awoken by a bonk on the head from Karui, which made Tsunade laugh heartily. She greeted and welcomed Team Yugito into the Senju compound with a smile on her face. With a couple days to go until the first part of the Chunin exams, the Senju compound was a lively mix of international cooperation and friendship. It was great for Naruto to see his Kumo friends once again and he managed to form a relationship with Yugito and Matatabi. He didn't know the two from before because by the time the villages came together in the 5-cage summit, Yugito had already been captured with the Nibi extracted. Therefore, he did his best to get to know his sister in Burden before shit really started hitting the fan. A beautiful red-haired man, I imagine Kurama's human form looking like Guy Crimson from Tensura, walked up and placed a K on the back of Yugito's hand. Matatabi went from purring in Yugito's mind and telling her to jump the man's bones to screaming to do it. The two-tailed cat was incredibly jealous and raged in Yugito's mindscape when she identified the man as Kurama and saw him walking around freely in the Senju compound. Unfortunately for Yugito, her seal was incompatible with Naruto's jutsu to let Kurama out of the seal. The cat's moans and groans would be the main source of Yugito's headaches for the duration of her time in Konoha. Chunin exams, some things never change, and yet, things never stay the same. The morning finally came, the Chunin exams were here. Naruto didn't know what to expect since Tsunade had agreed to warn Konoha about Orochimaru ahead of time. He knew from Tsunade's and Shizune's briefing those plans had been changed and Tsunade told him that the second round of the Chunin exams would be completely different. Hopefully that would prevent Orochimaru from sinking his fangs into Sasuke and prevent a key event that led to the bitter conclusion. Naruto broke himself out of his thoughts and took a moment to appreciate the two blondes that were sleeping next to him. Ino had snuck out and joined the craziness at the Senju compound last night. He had kept it PG-13, not wanting to do anything too fast too soon, but that didn't mean he would refuse either of his loves his bed. The feeling of their heads on his chest with the blonde hair splayed out all of his body and pillows was truly a gift from Kami. Good morning, loves. It's time to get up, he whispered, placing a K on each of their foreheads. Ino mumbled and pushed her head deeper into his chest. 5 more minutes. Temari mirrored Ino, except she had a little bit of droll dribbling off of her chin and onto his chest. 10 more minutes. Naruto chuckled and played with each of their hair. He didn't have the heart to refuse them anything and they had plenty of time to get to the academy. He soaked up the affection and enjoyed the moment while it lasted. That was until Kankuro crashed through the door and flipped the bed, before turning around and running out of the room giggling like a loon. Two pissed-off blondes in their nightwear grew tick marks and demon horns before chasing the doomed Tsunagenin out of the room. As Naruto finished brushing his teeth, his sensitive ears picked up screams of pain coming from the training area. He chuckled again and shook his head. He could appreciate a good prank, but Kankuro never thought of the ramifications of his actions whenever said prank involved Temari. 2 hours later, after eating a good breakfast, Naruto linked up with Team 8 out front of the academy. Temari and Samui convinced Naruto that showing up together would be a bad idea. They should keep their alliance under wraps for as long as possible to give them an advantage during the exam. He waved to Shino and Hinata and shot them one of his gigawatt smiles. You two ready for this? Logically speaking, we are well ahead of our Genin compatriots. I believe we have a high probability of success. Shino answered in his monotone. Yeah, I agree with Shino. Hinata said. Naruto laughed at Hinata's sheepish response before he slung an arm over her shoulder. Haha, relax Hina-heim, you are strong. Plus, you will have Gaara there to protect you as well. He wiggled his eyebrows for effect, which drew a chuckle from Shino and a nuclear blush from Hinata. Well, Hinata stumbled across her words as Naruto dragged her into the academy, laughing all the way. Team 8 put the game faces on once they entered the academy. They walked past the group on the second floor that was duped by the genjutsu. Memories of Team 9's previous antics made Naruto laugh internally, which made Kurama chuckle as well. Naruto had requested for his partner to be in the seal with him in case he needed to confront Orochimaru. Kurama willingly agreed, saying that it would be fun to see how Naruto handled the exams this time around. Naruto noticed that Team 9 was absent this time around, but he sighed in disappointment when he heard Team 7 arrive as he was beginning to ascend the stairway to the third floor. Sasuke, ever the proud little Uchiha, had his monkey marbles active and Naruto heard him call out. Drop this petty genjutsu and let us pass. You cannot fool the supreme eyes of the Uchiha. Sasuke said arrogantly. Yeah, who are you to get in Sasuke-kun's way? Let us pass. Sakura screeched, making Kiba and Akamaru wince. Naruto turned and walked up the stairs, completely devoid of the will to put up with Team 7's bullshit. He ushered Hinata and Shino to follow him. Shino spoke up. I have tagged all relevant parties. My bugs will gather the information for us. He whispered. Good. Remember, your targets are the Oto team, Am teams, Kusa teams and Iwa teams. I am not worried about our allies, but I want you to have bugs spying on them. They are to return if they hear anything concerning them targeting us. Naruto answered back. Do you really think we will be targeted? Hinata asked with a hint of trepidation. Naruto shot an apologetic look at Hinata. Yes, without a doubt. I have not hidden who I am, and I have made a name for myself in Suna and Wave. Don't worry, I will keep you safe, Hina-heim. Not to mention Gaara told me he would have your back as well. Hinata blushed and buried herself in her jacket to hide her embarrassment. Well, it is good to see you three looking confident. You shouldn't tease your teammates so much though, Naruto. Itachi said with a small smile on his face. Naruto smiled, come to see us off, sensei. Itachi nodded. Jon and Sensei are required to make sure their teams report with all three members, otherwise the team would be unable to compete. I have trained you well, remember to work together and have faith in each other. You will do fine. Thanks, Sensei. Chorused Team 8 before walking through the door, 30 minutes before the start of the test. Oh, and I like the new uniform, Ruto. Itachi added. Thanks, Sensei. Naruto replied as he smoothed out his uniform. He was wearing a black hoodie-style jacket with pouches sewn into the front. On the pouch was the crest of the Senju overlapped on the Uzumaki whirlpool. On the back was a bigger version of this emblem and across his shoulders there was orange kanji that said, family above all. The sleeves were rolled at the elbow and tied with his weight bands. His resistance seals were condensed down into what appeared to be a tattooed bracelet on each wrist. For his lower body, he wore a burnt orange utility belt that held his sealing and medical kits with hitches for his scabbards in case he wanted to wear his swords on his waist. He left Benihime and his wakizashi in his wrist seals, not wanting to show off his mother's sword this early in the campaign. He finished the outfit off with black cargo pants with burnt orange pocketing and black combat boots with burnt orange laces. All in all, he was able to satisfy his love for orange and he did it in a more tactical manner than the last time around. Walking into the room, Naruto noticed that all eyes in the room were fixed on him and his teammates. He barely noticed the paltry killing intent that the room of Genin were throwing, but it was clear that Hinata and Shino were put off by it. He flared his chakra a bit, encompassing his teammates in a warm feeling and saw that his two friends had visibly relaxed. He turned his attention on the classroom and decided to address them. All right, kiddos, enough with the intimidation attempt. You can barely scare off a small puppy, so just play nice or I will be forced to do something drastic. He said calmly. A scoff came out from the back of the room before 3 Iwa Genin stepped forward. A girl with short cropped black hair, black eyes with pink irises and her red Iwa uniform stepped forward. Kuretsuki saw her main target and decided to get a glimpse of her arch enemy. Her 2 new Genin teammates stepped up and placed themselves on either of her shoulders. Seeing 2 easy targets behind Naruto, she flared her ki in an attempt to throw him off the game. Well, if it isn't Naruto Senju, son of the demon spawn, mass-murdering son of a. Kuretsuki's haughty tone ended abruptly, she choked on her own words before she could get the last word out. Her and her 2 teammates felt a deadly power choking the breath out of their lungs and forcing them to the ground. She looked up and saw emerald, green eyes, glowing with power and looking directly at her. She saw a faint green chakra aura emanating from Naruto and knew that she may have gone too far. Ah, Kuretsuki, granddaughter of the Tsuchikage. Funny, I thought you were a chunin by now. Can't say I am surprised since I have heard how your grandfather works. I suggest you refrain from talking about my parents in such a manner, you aren't in Kansas anymore, princess. Naruto's voice came out in a calm tone that was much more menacing than his growl. It was overflowing with power, carrying the promise of death should its warning not be heeded. Kuretsuki slowly nodded her head, her hands holding her up from completely collapsing on the ground. As swiftly as the pressure landed on her, it departed just as quickly. She was able to breathe again, but with the oxygen came the realization that she couldn't take this kid. As strong as she was, such raw power didn't belong in the hands of a mere genin. Her danger senses were flaring, and she knew she would have to reevaluate her mission. Shaking off the fear and forcing herself to her feet, she noticed that most of the classroom wasn't faring any better than she was. Some kids were passed out in their chairs, others shaking while sweating profusely, a couple passed out cold on the floor, and overall, the genin teams were making an effort to avoid eye contact with Naruto as they regained their wits. A cough from Naruto forced her attention back onto him. Look, princess, I am not here to pick a fight, but it is clear you are. So, I will offer a warning. Don't with my team. Do that, and you will have a pleasant stay in the land of Oz. Naruto flashed a toothy grin at Kuretsuki and brushed past her to join Team 9 in the back of the large classroom. While walking, he listened to Kurama snicker and say that it was worth it being stuck in the seal again just to see that. However, Naruto was bothered by something. He racked his brain and searched his memory trying to remember if Iwa even sent any teams in his last life. By the time he joined Team 9, he realized that this was yet another change to the timeline. The only thing that could have brought Iwa here was himself. Oh boy, these exams are going to be fun. Of course, Naruto wasn't worried about himself, he was only concerned about Shino and Hinata. That was quite the show you put on, Ruto. 1010 snickered. Indeed, it was a most youthful example of your flames of youth. After your mom fixes my coils, will I be able to make such a youthful display? Lee shouted, gaining attention from around the room. Quiet down, Lee. We do not want to draw unwanted attention to ourselves. Naruto, that was quite the statement you made. You already have enough targets on your back, I would advise you not to needlessly add more. Neji said in a calm, yet dignified, tone. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Hee, well, I was never good at laying low. She was about to cross the line and I simply informed her that it would be unwise to cross said line. Oh, is that all you did? 1010 said with a red eyebrow. Naruto shrugged, which let Hinata get into the conversation. Good afternoon, big brother. Did you bring your bow along? Father asked me to make a statement, so I was hoping you would join me. Neji smirked, yes, sister. I have my bow sealed away and I am more than ready to make a statement. With long-range prowess and the ultimate short-range taijutsu, the Hyuga clan will soon be feared again. How do you two like the new foldable compound bows? Any issues you found or tweaks you want made? Naruto asked, his voice indicating he was in his inventor mode. I like that it is collapsible and light. The sealed arrows are really nice too. Hinata said quietly. Neji nodded, I agree with Hinata. I tried using the bow as a short-range weapon like you showed, but I am concerned about breaking it. Will reinforcement seals work, like the ones you have on your swords? Naruto shook his head in the negative. Sadly, I already have too many active seals. It would become very chakra draining if I added the reinforcement seals, and I would have to do that while they are being forged. That is why I added the bladed wings though, so you can channel chakra through them, which should make them able to stand up to any standard swords. Neji frowned. Yes, I saw that. My chakra channeling needs work. Think I could get some pointers on that. This is the first time in my lifetime that Hyugas are actually using weapons. Naruto laughed internally. The difference between this Neji and the previous Neji during the Chunin exams was astronomical. Sure, he still had a chip on his shoulder and quite a bit of darkness from his father's situation, but he was still loads better. Kurama was just nodding his head inside the seal. In Naruto's previous life he wanted to break the seal and devour the pathetic of fate. It was this comment that had Naruto distracted by his internal laughter. Naruto was broken from his musings with Kurama due to a loud and familiar screech. Teams 8 and 9 turned to see Sasuke being the center of attention that he always loved to be. Come to think of it, Naruto could see 5 other Uchihas around the classroom, yet another positive change. Sure, Kurama may disagree with that, but Naruto counted it as a positive. While Team 7 blabbered away and the talk with Kabuto began, Naruto was happy to see Ino and Team 10 walk right past Team 7. She sauntered up to him, placed her arms around his neck and placed a K on his lips. Naruto felt more than a couple kunoiki flare up in jealousy, and he saw Temari smirking at him when he broke the K with Ino. She was looking at him in a way that said, "Just you wait, mister. I am getting mine when this stupid test is done." Naruto threw Temari a wink and was pleased to see he got a small blush out of the kunoiki. Naruto tuned into the conversation as he saw Kabuto pulling out his Nin info cards, and he wasn't surprised when Sasuke asked for information on Gaara, Samui and Naruto. Before any of his friends' information could be shared, a super dense water bullet ripped through the stack of cards. All heads in the room turned toward Naruto, who was holding his right hand in a gun shape and blowing imaginary smoke off the tip of it. Now, Kabuto, was it? I don't think it is necessary to reveal to the whole world that you are a spy. You are probably even a pretty good spy, but the question is, who do you spy for? Naruto said in an overly calm tone, which made Kabuto start sweating. Kabuto laughed awkwardly and tried to steal Naruto's signature pose, which didn't sit well with our resident Jinchuriki. I don't know what you are talking about, Lord Senju. Internally, Kabuto was enraged, but he had an image to project. He would get the bastard back in the second round where nobody would be watching. He was confident that he could take this genin, but it wasn't yet time for his activities to come to light. I simply wanted to share information I have gathered with my comrades. Yeah, Senju, why did you destroy the cards before I got any good information? Sasuke snarled. He looked truly upset that he couldn't get the goods on Naruto. Naruto shot a look at Gaara and Samui, who each smiled and gave him a small nod. Naruto stepped onto the desk and began an overly dramatic speech. Since everyone is so interested, I am Naruto Senju Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. I am damned proud of my parents, so if you wish for a painful death, go ahead and badmouth them in my presence. I was trained by Tsunade Senju, Raza no Subaku and Itachi Uchiha. I am stronger than each and every one of you, not a question of if, but how much stronger that you should be asking yourselves. I lost count of my S, A and B rank missions, but I have a couple hundred thanks to my seals. Gaara, you want to go next? Naruto finished with a smirk toward his brother. Gaara simply stood from his lean position on the wall. I am Subaku no Gaara, youngest child of the 4th Kazekage. Naruto is my brother, and he is the only one to ever make me bleed. Gaara stopped here and flared his ki while looking around the room. If you choose to fight me, and you are not Naruto, you will lose. Samui. Samui smiled at her two friends, she really missed spending time with them. Samui from Kumo, Master Swordswoman, pretty cool at lightning jutsu. I studied in the exchange program with Naruto and Gaara before graduating at the top of my class. If you aren't my friend, you aren't cool. People that aren't cool die, or at least that has been the trend so far. If you see those two, I advise you to run, or the results will not be cool. Naruto laughed heartily at Samui's address. There you go, your top 3 from Konoha, Kumo and Suna. Anything else to add, Spy Boy? Naruto turned his cold gaze on Kabuto. No, Lord Senju. That was pretty thorough. Kabuto said meekly, which made Naruto's smirk turn feral. The thought of crushing this snake was starting to overwhelm Naruto's mind. Easy, Kit. Wait for the right time and place. You have no proof that he has aspired this time. Kurama calmed his container down. Who needs proof when you have a sword, Q? Naruto thought back. Kurama chuckled, HMM, well, I don't disagree with your logic, but if you want to stay in this village then you will need to play this right. Stick to the plan, Kit. The rest of the first test proceeded much like the main story, until the end. One of the key differences is that Naruto was leaking ki throughout the exam, increasing the pressure on the genin. It made Ibiki's methods far more effective, and it separated the wheat from the chaff pretty quickly. At the 49th minute, smoke filled the classroom and there were 3 thumps followed immediately by the sound of cracked wood. By the time the smoke cleared, 3 Oto ninjas were unconscious at the desks and their papers were nowhere to be seen. During the smokescreen, which was caused by the creation and immediate dispelling of over 100 shadow clones, Naruto made his move on the sound team. In the smokescreen, in less than 3 seconds, Naruto sent 3 shadow clones to smash Kin's, Dosu's and Zaku's heads into the desks before stealing their exams. Ibiki was enraged that somebody disrupted his exam, but he had no definitive proof of what happened or who did it. It took him a total of 10 seconds to realize something was going on before he cleared the chakra smoke with a minor wind jutsu called air current. By the time the smoke cleared, everyone was looking around the classroom trying to figure out what just happened. Ibiki glared around the room, trying to find the culprit. His glare was so fierce, especially when combined with overflowing ki, that a genin from Kusa fainted and a genin from Taki pissed himself. A Chunin proctor informed him that it was time for the 10th question, and he broke into his usual spiel. Instead of Naruto providing a confidence boost this time around, he let his aura leak out again for further intimidation. The result was a mere 32 teams remaining by the end of the first round. Naruto enjoyed Anko's display this time around, but he couldn't stop the blush that filled his cheeks. The lucid dreams that were actually memories of Rias and Anko immediately came to mind. Let's just say that even with his previous life's experience, Naruto was never so creative in bed and the images of the 2 beauties always rose to the surface when he saw Anko. A wad of paper to the back of his head combined with a glare from Ino shattered those thoughts and let him focus on what Anko was saying. All right, kiddos, sadly I don't get to take you to my playground this year. Evidently, too many kiddies died during the last excursion to my playground and the Hokage felt like playing nice. We have 32 teams remaining, so your team leader will come up here and grab a packet from me. Each of these packets has 3 coded messages that will tell your team where you need to go, and it will also have a cipher. You are to decode this message and report to the assigned training ground. These messages are standard in the shinobi world, and you need to know how to read them quickly and accurately. There are essentially 4 groups, kiddies. There are 4 training grounds that you will need to locate and secure one of 2 medallions that are there. I will save the surprises for those who get their hands on a medallion. Any questions? An genin raised his hand and started asking his question. Too bad, I don't give a. Figure it out, you are supposed to be shinobi. Now, team leaders, come up front and get your sealed packet. The packet will unlock once I let it, so don't try to open it before I tell you. Naruto and other team leaders moved forward and collected their packets. Naruto saw room 201 feet on the outside of his packet and returned to gather Shino and Hinata. From what he gathered, other teams were assigned a room where they could work as well. He stood by Hinata and Shino and waited for Anko to explain further. Once everyone had their packets, Anko spoke up. If you haven't figured it out already, each group is assigned a room to work in. Fun story, each team in your room will have your same packet. Physical attacks on other teams are not allowed. Until you decipher your message, you are to remain in that room. You have 5 minutes to get to your assigned room before the second phase begins. Now, scram. Anko was cackling as she watched the genin teams try to force their way out of the doors. The first genin teams into each room were treated to paint bombs, tar, feathers, paralysis traps, and itching powder. Anko basically did everything she could to tilt the genin teams and make it harder for them to focus. The Jonin sensei watched their teams on the monitors and they felt sorry for them while they rolled around on the ground clutching their sides. Best Chunin exams ever, Asuma wheezed out through fits of laughter as he kept his eyes on the monitor. Baki, who was also on the ground laughing, added, "That crazy snake lady is terrifying." Kakashi, who was giggling normally while looking at the monitors over the top of his book, added, "You have no idea, Baki. Don't ever piss her off. If you do, make sure you kill her or you run very, very fast." Han watched through his mask with a raised eyebrow while Kokuo let out deep chuckles in his mind. So, Konoha chooses to make a mockery out of the Chunin exams. Itachi stopped his chuckling and addressed the Jinchuriki. Trap making, diffusing and detection, as well as situational awareness, are being trained here. Maybe you are just mad your Genin princess got tarred and feathered. This comment, made in Itachi's stoic monotone, drew laughs from the other Jonin. "Ah yes, Uchiha, you are the instructor of that boy. Look at what he is doing and tell me that is not a mockery." Han bit back. Itachi looked at the monitor and saw Team 8 huddled up in a privacy barrier while an army of clones were in the room performing a variety of distracting and arguably unprofessional actions. Asuma tuned the volume to listen into room 201 where Naruto's team, a team from Kumo, Kusa, two teams from Suna and another team from Konoha were. "I know a song that gets on everybody's nerves, everybody's nerves, everybody's nerves." "Yes, I know a song." Asuma rapidly muted the monitor as the Jonin sensei cringed at the off-pitched singing of the Mulude of Blondes. He is taking advantage of the exam's rules, distracting and agitating his enemies and guiding his team to the objective. "I see no problem with his strategy." Itachi replied coolly, which earned a laugh from Yugito. "Ha, Itachi, Samui told me your kid was a genius. I am just glad she is not matched up against him. Holy shit, he is done already." 10 minutes ago, in room 201. The second phase just began, and Naruto set his dastardly plan into motion. He knew Anko would never let the Genin escape her devious entertainment, torture, so he had held his team back before entering the room. He watched on, heavily amused, as one trap after another caught the Genin teams assigned to the room. He sent in a couple clones to clear out a space for his team before they used Kawarimi to switch places with Team 8. As soon as they were given the go, he created 50 shadow clones and erected a barrier with Team 8, himself and 2 shadow clones inside. He used the principles of the shadow clone jutsu to copy the packet before he handed a page to Hinata and Shino. "Okay guys, quick and easy. I copied the ciphers. Hinata and Shino work on your pages from top down. Clones, from bottom up. Meet in the middle and voila. Once we have the clues, we will figure it out quick while the clone army is doing its job." Naruto ordered and got 2 nods from his teammates. They set to work deciphering their messages in absolute silence, except for the scratching of pens to write down the transcribed message. He took the 3rd page for himself and set to work with his transcribed message not making any sense. After 8 minutes, Hinata spoke up. "Okay, I have the 1st page. My transcribed message is 7 times 4 divided by 12. Now bend over and grab your ankles." Hinata blushed as she said the last part the clone deciphered. "Good work Hinata, I am almost done." "Shino," Naruto said, clearly concentrating on his task. Shino put his pen down and pushed up his glasses. 2 plus 2 makes 4, dummy. Now add that to your previous score. Naruto chuckled, haha, Anko had fun with this one. "Okay, done. Take your sum and multiply by 2, pwahaha Anko. If you can't do the math, go to the whorehouse's bath." Shino suppressed a chuckle, or was that irritation? It was always hard to tell with the aberrame. "That means 4 plus 4 times 2 which equals 16. Naruto shrugged, training ground 16 then. "Any team in here you guys want to help or fight?" Shino looked around the room before his glasses fixed on a particular team. "Do you want to fight that Kabuto guy? He claims he failed the exams 6 times already. What do you think, Q?" Naruto thought. "Probably not the best idea, Kit. He could hurt or kill your team. Remember, even if he is a snake, he is at least Jonin level." Kurama answered through the link. Naruto scoffed internally before replying to Shino. "Let's not. Kabuto is not what he seems. How about the Suna team with Mayuri on it?" Hinata suggested. Fine by me. Naruto dispelled one of his clones and saw a shadow clone approaching the group of Suna Genin. Naruto dropped the barrier. Team 8 checked out with an extremely annoyed Chun and Proctor, and they used a series of shunshin to get to training ground 16 within 20 minutes of the exam starting. Naruto held up the hand signal for halt as he surveyed the training ground. Hinata, scan for traps. Remember, this is Anko we are talking about, so be thorough. Naruto said. Hinata activated her Byakugan and saw that the clearing was filled with traps. She gulped before she began pointing them out to Naruto. These traps were more deadly than the ones in the classroom, but Hinata pointed out the medallions. Naruto locked onto the location before he turned and asked his question. Hard and fast or slow and easy? Naruto asked. Shino shrugged through his trench coat. It is a race. Will we survive hard and fast? Naruto smirked devilishly. We will. Before he formed his cross-hand sign. They won't. 100 Naruto shadow clones popped into existence and their creator pointed in the direction of the amulet. Shino and Hinata watched in morbid fascination as a horde of shadow clones charged in the direction he pointed. They ran, with no regard for stealth or decency, directly at the amulet. They charged forward, unsung heroes of the Narutoverse, as traps exploded left and right. Small fireballs, braces of kunai and shuriken, spike traps, falling logs, spike netting and many more horrors illuminated the battlefield in an orchestra of gore and wasted ninja supplies. Shisui Uchiha was moaning and groaning about being a proctor for the second exam. He was the Anbu commander for Kami's sake, and now he was told he had to watch brats complete an impromptu test. To get his revenge, he had painstakingly set up a trap field that would be sure to entertain him. The setup took nearly 2 hours as he took the supplies Anko gave him and set up an obstacle course of Anbu Fury. He finished setting up 20 minutes ago and was relaxing in a tree, peeking at a little orange book he would never admit to owning. Suddenly, Shisui felt a shunshin approaching, and from the amount of chakra used he guessed it was a whole genin team. He watched with interest as the topic of much discussion showed up less than a half hour after the second phase started. He saw the Hyuga use her Byakugan to identify where the amulet lay in the brief team discussion that followed. What came next both surprised and mortified him. Shisui's jaw hit the tree branch as he watched a horde of blonde shadow clones launch themselves into his trap field. With reckless abandon, the horde moved forward and initiated a short, yet intense, symphony of chaos. The clones yelled things like, YOLO, or, bring it on mother, or, praise the log, or any other number of suicidal phrases that made Shisui nearly fall of his branch in laughter. He would have done so if he weren't so enraged by all his efforts being undone by mere shadow clones. In less than a minute, the concerto of death ended in nearly 90 puffs of smoke as 10 shadow clones walked back to their creator like a scene out of a movie. Wind blowing their blonde hair, fire and smoke billowing behind them as they moved with a strut in their step and moving in slow motion. Suddenly, a trap they missed ignited as they were in the middle of their antics, and the 10 shadow clones dispelled in a shower of flames and rusty nails. After all of that, it was the nail bomb that did them in. After Hinata declared the path clear and Shino ceased his buzzing, Team 8 moved forward to the site of the last fatalities. Naruto gave his clone's memory a nod of respect before he bent down and picked up the medallion. He then looked over at where Shisui was posted up and aired an eyebrow. Shisui appeared in a flame shunshin and directed Team 8 where to go. With the Suna team at the beginning of the second phase, it was Kankuro that came through in the clutch. A puppeteer was all about secrecy and fighting from the shadows. As such, Kankuro had gotten training from Chio and Ebisu about operating as a spy or spy master. Kankuro was able to decipher the messages, and Gaara's team was the first to leave their testing room. He didn't miss the nasty glance from the Iwa team. Since Suna's rise, Iwa had been easily agitated and border skirmishes were more common. Gaara himself had recently dispatched 2 teams of Iwa Chunin during one such skirmish. Gaara approached training ground 12 just shy of 50 minutes after the start of the second phase. Temari and Kankuro could easily see a couple of traps and presumed that the training ground was Y-trapped. Gaara shrugged before going through a couple hand signs. First, it looked like the earth moved in a wave as his, earth-style, earth flow wave, tore across the training ground. Temari followed it up with a wide-scale, blunt force wind attack, wind-style, planar fan. The winds tore across the training ground following Gaara's jutsu. Traps either activated or fell apart as the two jutsus forced their hand. With Samui, she was struggling to keep her cool temper under control. She could tolerate many things, but the leer of the Uchiha prick was starting to get to her. She remembers the many times he arrogantly approached her and told her that she would make a proper Uchiha wife, as if he owned her. The attempt stopped after she told Naruto, but it seemed the prick would need a reminder. She started the test by triplicating the cipher and passing one sheet apiece to her teammates. None of them were intel specialists, so they were slower moving than she would prefer. She saw the pink-haired Banshee shout in triumph right as her team finished deciphering the message. Team 7 and Team Yugito dashed out of the room at a breakneck pace, each one wanting to get to the training ground first. Samui knew where it was in general, but she wasn't familiar enough with the place to use a shunshin. An hour after the start of the exam, both teams were on the edge of training ground 33. The teams eyed each other warily before Kiba pointed out where the medallions were. Omoi, the censor of the group, informed Samui that there was another group heading in the direction, which spurred her to action. She ordered her team to alternate in use of lightning-style jutsus in order to spring or disarm the traps. Unfortunately, lightning style wasn't the most effective at wide-scale attacks, so Samui decided to resort of explosive tags. The Kumo team began chucking out explosive tags every 10 meters on the way to their objective. Samui was forced to spit out the foul taste in her mouth when Team 7 beat Team Yugito to the medallions by using the Inuzukas, Fang over Fang, and tunneling Fang. Despite doing nothing, the Uchiha still wore a condescending look, like she was some prize whore to take home. Unfortunately, the proctor was there, and she wasn't able to wipe the sickening look off his face. She walked up and snatched the other medallion before being told where to report. On the northern edge of training ground 44, Orochimaru was waiting in disguise for an update from his spy. He found it odd that there had been no movement around the forest, which was the traditional place for the second phase of the Chunin exams. As he spread out his senses, he could feel genin teams running around the village, but they were not running toward the Forest of Death. Furthermore, there were no proctors running around and preparing anything for the genin teams. After 2 hours of waiting, which was sickening for the Snake Sannin, Kabuto finally showed in front of his master, down on one knee like a good little servant. Orochimaru didn't say anything, he simply used his ki to let his servant know that he wasn't pleased. It was hard enough getting into the damned village with all of the new security measures. After sweating for 10 seconds, Kabuto swallowed the lump in his throat and began his report. Lord Orochimaru, my attempt to gain favor with the Uchiha was thwarted, however, I could tell that he is every bit as egotistical and power-hungry as we expected. He will be an easy target for one as great as yourself. That being said, it is clear that they changed plans relatively quickly. The second phase was a cipher test and race to collect medallions. Given the number of medallions, there will likely be a follow-on battle phase, but I do not know where. I humbly beg your mercy, I was unaware of these changes. Kabuto bowed his head low, hoping his master was in a merciful mood. Orochimaru glared down at Kabuto, this was an alarming change of plans, and his follow-on plans will need to be altered. Enough, Kabuto. You know too much groveling makes me sick. We will adjust our plans. If the Uchiha makes it to the final round, then he will get private training. Regardless, we will snag him up in the invasion. After you cast the Genjutsu, that will be your primary mission. We will merely need to break him before we build him back up and he is ready to be my vessel. As you will, Lord Orochimaru. Naruto sighed, it was already a long day, and this exam was far outside of his range of expectations. Sure, he gave the old monkey a warning, but this was alarmingly different than what he expected. He sat with Team 8 in the arena, the place that was supposed to host the final stage of the Chunin exams, not the preliminary rounds. Even Kurama was surprised by the differences, but he attributed it to Naruto's meddling. Around 5 p.m., the final team was approaching, and Naruto smiled when he saw Team 10 walking calmly into the waiting area. Naruto noticed that Chuji looked a little worse for wear, but they were in one piece, nonetheless. Ino ran forward and embraced Naruto in a big hug, which was joined by Temari from behind. She let Ino have Naruto in the classroom, so it was her right to have him now. So, Shika, why does Chuji look like he is the only one that went into battle? Naruto asked while peering through 2 sheets of blonde hair. It was too troublesome. I bribed him with 2 buffets at the barbecue to get him to roll through all the traps. His human bullet tank, enhanced with earth chakra, makes him the perfect minesweeper. Shikamaru shrugged and yawned after delivering his answer. Chuji polished off 2 sticks of beef jerky simultaneously before chastising Shikamaru. Yeah, my lazy friend here said it would be too slow and troublesome to disarm all of the traps. That, and we had another team close on our tails, so I didn't have much of a choice. That was pretty ballsy of you, Tank. Came a female voice from behind Naruto. Chuji did his best Naruto impression before his cheeks blushed a bit. Ah, thanks, Karui. It is nice to know you care. Karui blushed before Samui spoke up, so, it is pretty clear we will be fighting. Best guesses as to how it will be decided. Shikamaru yawned before offering his 2 cents. Well, my coin is number 7. The others shared their coin numbers. Well, troublesome, it seems we will be fighting as teams. Before the inter-village group of genin could break that down further, the Hokage appeared along with the Jonin senseis. The genin formed up and waited for the Hokage's address. Hiruzen was pleased to see so many Konoha teams, and he was pleased further by the fact that Orochimaru was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps the neighborhood watch misled him, or perhaps his countermeasures were enough to thwart his students' plans. He cleared his throat before applying chakra to his vocal cords and projecting his voice. Welcome to the end of the 2nd round. We will be conducting team fights in order to determine who will make it to the finals and represent their village in this very stadium in front of the most influential people throughout the lands. Tonight, those teams present will fight 1 battle against another team, which will leave us with 12 finalists. The Hokage went on to explain the true meaning of the exams, and he explained the order of the fights. Hayate Gecko, the coughing proctor, stepped forward and explained the rules of the fights. There would be multiple proctors. If a proctor calls a participant out, then that participant will be removed from the fight. Killing was allowed, but heavily discouraged. The first fight was to be between Team 8 and a team from Iwa. Naruto pulled his teammates aside. All right guys, we are fighting as a team. This is where we thrive. I want seals off, beat them with raw speed and keep as many of your techniques under wraps as you can. No need to show our future companion what we can do. Hinata, if you want to use your bow, I am okay with that. Shino pushed up his glasses before replying calmly. Naruto, I believe that I will need to use my bugs. That team has a member of the Kamizura clan, which is known for their use of bees as combat insects. Well then I think I should use my bow and neutralize that target first. Hinata offered. Okay, no need to fall into grudge matches. I think I will be their main focus for a variety of reasons. I will distract and create an opening, you 2 capitalize and finish it. Naruto offered and got 2 confirmations in return. Team 8 walked calmly onto the field in between the 3 Chunin proctors. Their opponents, dubbed Steel Boy, B-Boy and Chump 1, scowled at him from across the field. Hayate stepped forward after coughing for a couple seconds. The match between Team 8 and Team Iwa begins, now. He knifed his hand down and jumped back. You have no idea how long I have been waiting for the day, blonde demon. Steel Boy began before being cut off by Naruto. Look, monologuing is all well and good, but you are just a side character. Save it, we get it, you hate my dad because he probably killed you mom, dad, grandma, grandpa or some other family figure in the war. I get it, it sucks, I am sorry for what it is worth. What about Azushio? Did you ever stop and think that my dad may have been a little mad when you wiped out my mom's clan and homeland when they weren't even actively participating in the war? No. Well then shut up. Naruto's aura was flaring during his whole retort, demanding submission and silence from the Iwa team. Rather than let the arguments drag on, Chump 1 and B-Boy jumped forward and placed their hands on the ground before calling out, Earth style, Earth Dome. Earth began to rise up and attempted to entrap Team 8, but the Earth Dome was thwarted by Naruto, who whisper, Earth style, Grand Earthen Spikes. He stomped on the ground and 8 earth spikes that were nearly 15 feet in diameter rose from the ground and shattered the dome that was close to enveloping Team 8. The Iwa team looked stunned that they were so easily outdone in Earth-style ninjutsu, but they were given no reprieve as 3 Narutos ran forward and engaged them. Naruto targeted the leader, who used the time to encase himself in stone and who appeared to have shiny skin underneath the stone as well. Naruto knew that earth armor was tough to penetrate, but he relished the challenge. He and his clones closed the distance in under 2 seconds, but the initial assault was halted, at least partially. Naruto Clone 1 charged after the Kamizura, wanting to distract the male genin long enough for Hinata to take action. The clone coated its fist in wind chakra and began lashing out at the bees escaping from the b-boy's sleeves. The clone was able to disintegrate a fair number of bees before a couple stingers caused it to go up in a puff of chakra smoke. Through the smoke came a volley of arrows, targeting each shoulder and the chest. B-boy was able to dodge the arrow going for his left shoulder before he was impacted by a blunted arrow to the chest. The impact of the arrow caused him to fall backwards before he realized that he was unable to move. From the impact area on his chest, kanji began spreading before glowing blue and dulling into dark black lines. The paralysis arrow did its trick as it completely neutralized the Kamizura, but that didn't stop his hive from acting on his behalf. As the bees erupted from his body, a massive water wave rose over the top of his downed form and sent B-boy and his bees crashing into the wall of the stadium, courtesy of Hinata. Naruto Clone 2 closed the distance between Chump 1 and engaged him in taijutsu. It was enough of a distraction for Shino to surround the boy with his kikaichu. The clone watched in amusement as the chump collapsed to the ground, completely drained of his chakra, after a mere minute of taijutsu. Shino muttered something about disappointments before he turned to assist Naruto in finishing the fight. Naruto charged right at the steel and earth encased Iwa genin. His speeds far exceeded genin standards and this idiot made it easier for him by slowing down his movements in exchange for durability. Naruto was more than happy to put that durability to the test as his own earth-encased fists dissected the slow movements of his opponent. Blow after blow landed on the steel body and chipped off the outer casing of earth. Eventually, Naruto jumped back and shook out his fists. Damn, well at least I know you can take a hit. I am not as good as my mama, but each of those punches were enough to liquefy the organs of a standard genin. Naruto took great pleasure in the shudder of fear he felt emanating from the contestant's box. Steel Boy was panting hard, having used up a great deal of chakra to reinforce his body and survive that onslaught. It is useless, you have nothing that can break through my armor. Naruto held up a hand to let his teammates know that he had this, which made him take a relaxed position behind him. Nothing, huh? Well, I was just trying to decide how to end it. In case you weren't paying attention, both of your teammates were taken out in less than a minute. I just found it amusing that you volunteered yourself to be a punching bag. Steel Boy growled and he heard shouts to forfeit from his friends up in the box, but he couldn't do that. This was his one chance at revenge. Bring it on, Namikas. I will avenge my father. Naruto shook his head sadly. I have told you, I am a senju, my father was a senju. Naruto's frown turned into a wicked grin as an idea came to him. I tell you what, since you are so fixated on dear old dad, I will use one of his techniques to defeat you. Naruto heard more than a few sharp inhales as his voice reached the contestant's box. Steel Boy was nervous, but he had used the time to reinforce his steel armor and he was ready to fight again. However, when he saw the blue sphere and heard the wind whipping around it, his face fell. Before he could forfeit, Naruto closed the distance and slammed the spiraling sphere into his gut. Rather than release it, Naruto pumped his legs and drove Steel Boy back into the wall of the stadium before letting the Rasengan destabilize and explode after it had grinded away the steel armor. Naruto walked away from the new crater in the stadium wall before the dust cloud even settled. He walked up to his teammates and gave them each a high five before they walked toward the contestants' box to rejoin their friends. The Iwa team was being carted off the field by a team of medics led by Tsunade, who winked at Naruto and blew him AK. Naruto swelled with pride and warmth as he saw that his mama was proud of him before he returned his attention to the contestants' box. Kuretsuki was scowling deeply. Steel Boy was a very strong genin and the Senju just dismantled him and his team in less than 2 minutes. Now, he was looking at her as if challenging her, and to make matters worse she knew she would lose. Her mission was to analyze the Senju boy and kill him if possible. The second phase being formatted the way it had prevented her from targeting him, but now she was grateful for that fact. Watching her fellow Iwa ninja be grinded to dust by that same infamous technique sent a blood-curdling shiver down her spine. She needed to report back to her grandfather and consult Han because it was clear that they would be need to neutralize this threat to Iwa. Naruto and Team 8 made it back into the booth and were clapped on the back by an overly excited Lee, and many other members of his study group. Even Samui and Omoi joined the friendly display of camaraderie, which set Kurotsuki on edge even more. It was clear that this alliance would be too powerful for Iwa to accept, and it all hitched on Naruto Senju. As Naruto gave his two women K, and Samui sighed in sorrow at the missed opportunity. She remembered Naruto's warmth and affections less than a year ago and she wanted them back. During one night, she had caught him meditating alone in the garden and attempted to start things back up where they left off. With a sad look on his face, he had taken her head in his hands and placed a K on her forehead before giving her the softest letdown ever. He stayed with her as the tears fell freely, dried them and told her that his only wish was to be her friend. She knew about Temari and Ino from the get-go and Naruto had never obfuscated his feelings for the two. Her only question was why she couldn't be one of his girlfriends, since he would be able to claim CRA or any other means of having multiple wives. His answer simultaneously warmed her heart and crushed it at the same time. Sammy, I hold love for you in my heart, I won't deny that. I somehow have the love of two amazing women that know everything about me and that is already more than I deserve. For me to ask for a third would be nothing more than selfishness and my greedy heart would never be able to stop at 3. You are an absolutely amazing woman and there is a man out there that will actually deserve your love. As for me, I just hope that I can be your friend. He whispered softly into her ear while holding her in an embrace. Samui pushed the memories aside as her team was called into the arena. Karui put a comforting hand on her shoulder, knowing exactly what had her usually cool teammate so hot and bothered. Team Yugito walked down into the arena while analyzing Team 7. The Uchiha, strutting like some overfluffed pea and the pink-haired girl, yes girl, she didn't deserve the lure of Kunoiki. To make matters worse, some dog boy was leering at her, and his eyes were never far from her admittedly sizable chest. Break them, Samui whispered to her two teammates. Karui nodded excitedly, having heard many times about the vain Uchiha from Samui. How you wanna do it? Omoi was thinking things through, using his knowledge from the academy to formulate a plan. Samui, distract the Uchiha and I will blind them with Flash Pillar. Karui, keep the Inuzuka distracted. He is a very proud boy and likes to consider himself an alpha. Play on that and he will abandon his teammates. Karui got a dastardly grin on her face. Oh, I can have some fun with that. What about Pinky? Samui shrugged, don't worry about the civvy. She might try a low-level genjutsu, but her raw stats and taijutsu are abysmal. Take out the guys and it will be cool. Team 7 and Team Yugito squared off in the arena and the Konoha teams were speculating about their chances. The conversation was fairly one-sided, which surprised Kurotsuki and the remaining Iwa genin. It might be unyouthful of me to say this, but Omoi and Samui are holders of the fiery flames of youth. Team 7 has unyouthfully refused to partake in our group sessions and I believe our comrades' flames will not burn hot enough. Lee started the conversation. Ino scoffed, oh please, Lee. I was able to defeat Sasuke in less than a year of training with Naruto. Samui and Omoi trained with him for the whole time during the exchange program and they have probably shared the knowledge with Karui and Kumo. I believe that Team 7 is fated to lose. I thought Guy Sensei's training sessions were crazy, but Naruto's training made more than just my muscles ache. My tenketsu have doubled in size in less than 6 months and my reserves have tripled. Not to mention I am the first generation of Hyuga to actually learn and incorporate ninjutsu. Neji said matter-of-factly. Kurotsuki listened on in a state of stunned disbelief. Are you telling me that Naruto Senju, that 13-year-old boy, trained all of you? She pointed incredulously at Naruto. Kankuro chuckled merrily and drew the contestants' attention. Ha ha ha, Naruto is a master at optimizing a training program. With his knowledge of human anatomy and the chakra system, not to mention mastery of Fuinjutsu, Kankuro was interrupted by a bonk on the head from Naruto. Bro, don't tell our friends from Iwa all my secrets. I am flattered that you hold me in such high regard, but please don't overshare. Naruto calmly rebuked his excitable brother. Sorry, bro. My bad. Kankuro said sheepishly. As Kurotsuki struggled to take all of the extra information in, her threat assessment of the Senju continued to escalate. The plans would need to change to address this. Her attention was drawn by the fight and her analytical eyes focused on the companion in the stadium. Immediately, Samui blurred forward at high speed and engaged the Uchiha, who had his Sharingan activated. She was amused to see Karui distract the Inuzuka before planting a knee in his gut. Sasuke was immediately pressed and on the back foot. How does a kunoichi possess more speed than him, an Uchiha? His eyes were tracking her movements, but his body was lagging behind the information provided by his eyes. He was so focused on the busty blonde and her lightning-covered katana that he missed the white-haired boy flipping through hand signs. After parrying a slash from Samui's katana and wincing at the lightning chakra numbing his hand, Sasuke looked to his right in time to be blinded by a brilliant flash of chakra light as he heard the boy call out, lightning style, flash pillar. Sakura was relieved that she wasn't immediately attacked, and she tried to provide her dear Sasuke some relief from the blonde Kumo Kunoichi's onslaught by throwing some kunai and shuriken. She then saw the boy jump into double team Sasuke and her body lunged forward to intercept. Before she had closed the distance, her eyes erupted in pain as the boy's body glowed with a brilliant blue light that exploded into a blinding flash. Sakura stumbled due to the surprising pain from her eyes before her world went black. Omoi saw the plan unfolding as expected. Samui was more than enough to keep the Uchiha tied up and the pink-haired girl fell right into his hands. After unleashing the jutsu, he dashed behind her as she stumbled and slammed the hilt of his katana into the back of her head. She crumpled lifelessly at his feet, which made him feel a slight bit remorseful, but she was never one of the people he liked during his time in Konoha. Karui trusted her two teammates and she was more than excited to deal with the mutt. As she charged toward him, she heard him say something that enraged her. She scowled deeply at the comment and channeled chakra to her feet and legs before planting a knee into his gut. She was forced to dodge a slash from the puppy, who was surprisingly fast for a creature of its size. She rolled out of the way and thought about how she could neutralize the puppy without hurting it too badly. Kiba deeply regretted saying, "Oh man, why did I get the flat-chested one?" He saw the spark of feminine fury and he was surprised by her burst of speed. He rolled into a crouched position with one knee on the ground as one hand instinctively clutched his throbbing stomach. He used his lowered position to activate Inuzuka Kinjutsu, beast mimicry, before his features grew more feral and he called out, Inuzuka Kinjutsu, all fours jutsu. Kiba looked like a feral beast as an aura encased him and he surged forward in a burst of speed. Samui took advantage of the Uchiha's blindness by dashing forward while weaving through hand signs. She placed her palm on the Uchiha's chest and whispered, lightning style, lightning rod jutsu. She pushed the Uchiha and jumped backwards before a pillar of blue lightning chakra erupted around Sasuke and the boy screamed out in pain before collapsing to the ground unconscious. Samui saw the proctor jump to the boy's side and remove him from the battlefield as she turned her attention to Karui and Kiba's fight. Karui was parrying the claws of the feral boy with her sword as his surprising burst of speed and aggression had her on the back foot. She was grateful that Omoi had engaged and immobilized the puppy, which was one thing less for her to worry about. That was until the dog boy decided to take that personally and threw a chakra pill into his mouth. Omoi swatted the chakra pill the boy tossed to his canine companion out of the air and decided to call over a proctor to remove the dog from the arena. Kiba was incensed. His team was dismantled in a couple minutes and Omoi was holding a kunai to Akamaru's throat. His Inuzuka instincts flared up and he lost control of his emotions as he saw his partner's life being threatened. He downed an Inuzuka chakra pill and launched into successive, fang over fang, attacks as he attempted to tear his enemies apart. His spinning ended and his world went blue before everything faded to black. The Hokage sighed in dismay as one of his teams was completely manhandled. To make matters worse, it was the Uchiha's team and Fugaku was watching it all happen. Hiruzen saw the scowl of disappointment on the Uchiha clan head's face as his son was targeted and removed from the fight. Hiruzen was disappointed by the paltry teamwork displayed by Team 7, but he willingly admitted that Team Yugito put on a fine display of teamwork. The culmination was luring Kiba into a lightning-style electrocution trap. Yugito was pleased with her team's efforts as she held out her hand to the silver-haired Kakashi Hatake. She had suckered him into a bet, and she was going to collect. She saw Kakashi crying as he handed over his copy of Ika Ika, Make-Out Tactics. His tears doubled when Yugito burned her prize right in front of his eyes. She saw the womanly nod of approval from Kurenai, which she returned with a wink. In the contestants' box, literally nobody was surprised. Team 10 and Kuretsuki's team stood up and walked into the arena for their turn at combat. Kuretsuki didn't miss the K the blonde girl gave Naruto on her way out. If she couldn't punish the Senju himself, then her grandfather would approve if she were able to kill or cripple one of his girlfriends. She shared her plan with her teammates as they walked down the long tunnel. Shikamaru was usually lazy and laid back, but he saw the look on the Iwa Genin's faces, especially when Ino K Naruto. He was worried about his teammates, but he was more worried about what Naruto would do if something were to happen to Ino. Shikamaru was confident that he would sooner march into Iwa alone and lay waste to it before he let one of his girlfriends get hurt. Ino, you are to avoid the Kuretsuki girl. I don't like the way she is looking at you. Chuji, tank to the front, let me use your shadow to capture one then flatten them. Don't hold back, something tells me Kuretsuki is no genin. Release all seals and fight to kill. Shikamaru whispered under his breath while the team was in the tunnel. Are you serious, Shika? Chuji asked, clearly not okay with going for the kill. You think they will target me? Ino added, ignoring Chuji's objections to killing. I have zero doubts, Ino. The way they have been looking at Naruto, you and Temari tells me all I need to know. The Tsuchikage probably sent them as an ace to kill Naruto in a legal way. I think they understand that they can't do that and will take it out on you. Shikamaru whispered back. Team 10 walked onto the field, clearly nervous, and took their positions across from the Iwa team. None of them missed the smirk on Kuretsuki's face, but they were determined to fight and represent their village. Naruto felt the tension and he sensed the foul intentions of the Iwa team. He was stood up and was already denting the railing with his firm grip. He watched the field with jaw clenched as the battle began. Chuji rolled toward the Iwa genin, targeting the bug user first, according to Shikamaru's plan. As Chuji expanded into his body expansion, human boulder, jutsu, he sensed Kuretsuki dashing past him along with the other male. Kuretsuki was surprised when she was caught in Shikamaru's shadow possession, but that was why she charged with Mitsuki. Mitsuki saw the shadow spreading and saw a shadow bubble expand and collapse around Kuretsuki. He immediately shifted targets to Shikamaru, but the blonde girl got in his way with dual Kodokus. Ino saw Shikamaru was tied up and she knew she needed to buy time for Chuji to remove the biggest threat on the field. Her Kodokus clashed against earth-encased fists and a brutal close-range battle ensued. It was all Ino could do to hold Mitsuki off and buy time for her team to finish the two opponents. She focused her chakra into the two blades, and they glowed with red fire chakra and emitted sparks as the blades clashed against earth fists that were hard as diamonds. Mitsuki was surprised that the blonde girl could keep up with him, but he was in control of the pacing and spacing of their little duel. He forced her to roll away from one of his kicks and took the opportunity to dash toward Shikamaru, who was still holding the Iwa kunoiki and was unable to inflict serious damage. Mitsuki lowered his shoulder and focused his chakra on that part of his body. He slammed into the shadow user and took great enjoyment in hearing his scapula crunching from the force of his shoulder slam. Shikamaru was sweating as he felt the clear difference in power between himself and Kuretsuki. Her chakra was far denser, more developed and more potent than his own, which made him struggle to keep hold of her, and she flared her chakra to break his shadow possession. He had tried to master shadow schooling or shadow strangulation, but they were both advanced techniques and required flawless concentration. However, the current state of the battle inhibited him from advancing his shadows as he watched Chuji abruptly end his jutsu for some reason. Kuretsuki smirked devilishly as she was finally freed of the annoying shadow possession. She nodded to Mitsuki, who smirked at her in return. Before the blondie could forfeit, she dashed toward her and engaged her in taijutsu. Kuretsuki encased her fists in lava and punished the blondie with scorching burns each time she was forced to block. After a minute of toying with her, she was able to connect a knee to Ino's gut and make her double over. Kuretsuki took great pleasure in gripping the Yamanaka by the base of her blonde hair as she dragged her face up to meet her gaze. She saw the sky blue eyes refuse to submit to her, which only ignited Kuretsuki's sadist side. Before the proctors could interrupt, she gathered lava chakra in her mouth and was prepared to scar that pretty little face. Naruto had been watching the battle with trepidation, and not even Temari's soothing embrace could comfort him. As Team 10 fell one by one, Naruto's worries grew and his grip on the railing tightened. He didn't even notice that he had sheared through the steel railing and his fist were balling the trapped steel. When Naruto saw Kurotsuki pull Ino's hair and gather chakra in her mouth, he lost it. Naruto appeared in a red flash onto the field at Ino's side before a world-shattering kick sent Kurotsuki flying back into the wall of the stadium. Mitsuki attempted to retaliate before the proctors could intervene, but he was sent flying into the air by a knee from the blonde boy holding the Yamanaka girl. Naruto took a deep breath as he sensed the bees heading in his direction and he thought, wind style, divine breakthrough. The divine breakthrough was the great breakthrough with Kurama's chakra and sage chakra infused into it. The enormous blunt force wind slammed into the insects and turned them to molecules of chitin before the wide-scale wind jutsu slammed into the bee girl with the force of a semi-truck. The girl was sent flying over the wall of the arena and into the bleachers of the stadium where she crashed in a shattering of bones that echoed around the stadium. All hell broke loose after the red flash appeared in the stadium. Hiruzen, Itachi and Guy immediately jumped into the stadium and jumped in front of Han before he could surprise Naruto with an attack. A dense and eerie silence filled the stadium in the brief moments following Naruto's intervention. Naruto was holding Ino in a bridal carry and glaring defiantly around the stadium before his hardened azure eyes locked on Han's. Hokage, Han spat out, this was uncalled for. The battle was ongoing, and he had no right to intervene. His tone was deep and demonic as he was pulling chakra from Kokuo. I demand the chance to revenge my team. Hayate stepped forward. Actually, your genin ignored me when I called the match. The Yamanaka was in no shape to continue fighting and I called the match. Your Kunoichi ignored my call and she was preparing a jutsu against a defenseless Kempor. Han scoffed, so, that gives that demon spawn the right to launch a surprise attack on my genin. That gives him the right to hospitalize my genin. Hiruzen stepped in between the two. No, Naruto will be reprimanded, and any further interference will disqualify him from the finals. Now, I recommend that you see to your genin. Hiruzen's voice was firm because he did not appreciate what Kurotsuki was about to do. The Tsuchikage will hear about this. Han growled. And you, Blondie, pray you never cross me in battle. Naruto simply smiled at Han. Oh, I think it would be fun. Tell Kokuo hello for me, although I doubt you even know her name. Kit, don't go sharing the name of my kin to simply taunt an enemy. Kurama roared in Naruto's head. Naruto watched Han disappear in a steam shunshin before he apologized to Kurama. It's fine, Kit. Blondie is like a mate to me as well. Be careful though, you are pulling on my chakra subconsciously and I cannot resist due to the influence of the Mokuton. You will need to be careful and accelerate your training if you wish for this body to be able to control my power. Iwa is up to something and their Jinchuriki being here is not a good sign. Kurama replied through the link. Yeah, I felt it too. You think they will join the invasion this time around? Naruto's internal voice was very concerned. I don't know, Kit. It is anyone's guess since you made sure Suna would never betray Konoha. I would assume the snake reached out to others this time around. Kurama seemed pensive. We will think about this later. Maybe I can find a use for the perverted toad. Naruto closed the link and returned to getting chastised by the Hokage. Naruto, no more of that. You could have caused an international incident. I should disqualify you for that alone. Hiruzen continued his weary rant. Naruto shrugged, honestly not caring. Do what you need to do, Lord Hokage. Although you will lose a lot of business if neither the Senju nor the Uchiha are in the finals. Plus, they were the ones that sent their Jinchuriki to a foreign village. Hiruzen used on hand to rub his weary eyes and the other to rub circles on his temples. Return to the contestants' box, Naruto Senju. We will discuss a fitting punishment at a later date. Naruto carried Ino to the contestants' box and watched as Shikamaru and Chuji were carried to the medical bay. He sat down with Ino on his lap as his friends offered their support for what he did. Nobody missed the cruel intentions of Kurotsuki, especially after Neji explained that she was gathering chakra for a lava jutsu when Ino was clearly beaten. Dang, Naruto, you just went down there and one-shot each of them in under 5 seconds. Kankuro said in an attempt to lighten the mood. Naruto sighed, yeah, I may have gone overboard, but I was subconsciously channeling Q's chakra, which made everything come out a little stronger than I wanted it to. Omoi slugged him in the shoulder, a little. He asked sarcastically. Ino stirred in his arms, and he kissed her on the forehead and told her to go back to sleep. The Sand Sib slapped him on the shoulder before walking down onto the field with Team 10. This fight would be a fierce compine between friends. Gaara made a deal with Lee not to use Shukaku's chakra so long as Lee doesn't open the gates, which Neji forced Lee to agree to. He was not looking to fight a flipping Biju for a mere promotion to Chunin. As the genin were making their way to the field, Raza was chuckling at Hiruzen's distress. Relax, old friend. Naruto just demonstrated what it would mean to cross Konoha, and he made a powerful statement at that. Imagine if the old midget knew that wasn't even a fraction of his power. Raza, don't make me think about Iwa or my troublesome Senju. Hiruzen was rubbing out his temples and puffing on his pipe like on old-fashioned wood-powered train. Raza wore an uncharacteristic smile that threatened to break over the edges of his face. Oh, Hiruzen, just relax. If that were my daughter in the Yamanaka girl's place, he would have prevented an all-out war. Those genin will have soon'd heal 'em up just fine. The Hokage's grumblings could be heard all the way down on the field as the proctor started the match. Hayate jumped out of the way, knowing that many of the sand genin specialize in long-range and wide-scale jutsu. The two teams just took battle-ready stances, but Gaara decided to speak with a maniacal grin on his face. Seals off, everybody. Gaara's normal monotone crackled with excitement. Neji nodded. Very well, we agree. Moments later, blue chakra light could be seen shining on the shins, wrists and chests of each of the 6 genin. They had all partaken in Naruto's CrossFit training as well as the follow-on exercises. The Sand siblings had the advantage of training with the energetic blonde for many years more than Team 9, however, Team 9 had Guy-sensei, who was no slouch when it came to physical training. As Lee bounced on the balls of his feet in excitement, sudden puffs of smoke appeared around Kankuro before 4 identical puppets flared to life. Neji responded by unsealing his bow, Ten began pulling kunai and shuriken out of her wrist seals and Temari opened her fan up. Lee, who couldn't wait any longer, blurred forward and called out, dynamic entry, as a spinning kick crashed into a sand barrier in front of Gaara. Lee flipped back with a battle-crazed grin on his face. As he landed, he made an over-exaggerated T with his hands and called timeout. He removed his jacket and handed it to Ten, who sealed it in a storage scroll. Lee then loudly counted down from 3 to re-engage the fight before he blurred out of existence again. As Lee dashed forward, Neji sent arrows out at Temari, trying to take her down in long-range combat. He was forced to roll to the side as a puppet with shield and sword made an easily trackable swing at his torso. Neji's Byakugan activated as he came out of his roll, and he blocked a downward slash from a puppet with one of the blades on the front of his bow. Ten paused her onslaught on Temari to move to defend Neji. She unsealed a warhammer and attempted a wide, horizontal swing at the assaulting puppet. Kankuro yanked his puppet backward and he yelped in surprise as Gaara's sand played defense and stopped a powerful spin kick from Lee, who was blurring all over the field and keeping the long-range attackers from Suna on the defensive. Gaara played his role as the ultimate defense for his team, needed his full attention to block Lee's attempts to pulverize his siblings. Getting frustrated with the high-speed attacks, Gaara weaved through hand signs and called out, Earth-style, sand pillars. 10 sand pillars emerged around his teammates, providing them cover and making it harder for Lee to move freely. Ten saw the sand pillars and knew exactly what Gaara was attempting to do. She pulled out 5 clusters of explosive tags and attached them to her kunai with chakra. She flung them out simultaneously and saw that Gaara's free sand moved to form a shield between the tags and his team. Ten cursed and decided to use the visual obstruction to relocate and decided to take out one of her trump cards. She dashed to the right and called out, Rhino, which was Lee's cue to get out of the way. As she pulled 2 long scrolls and threw them into the air, Lee slammed a heel onto the ground and created a miniature dust screen. Temari saw Ten throw 2 sealing scrolls into the air. She knew that the threat was coming from the left and she saw Gaara was occupied at their front. She opened her fan all the way and spun twice before turning her fan perpendicular to the ground and calling out, wind style, sickle weasel storm. 5 twisters fired out of her fan at surprising speeds before turning into the air and creating 5 vertical twisters that caught the airborne 10-10 and her scrolls in the wide area of effect jutsu. Lee cried out in distress as he saw his fellow teammate getting shredded by the slicing winds of Temari's twisters. With no regard for his own physical condition, Lee crouched and darted at 10-10's position, using his massive speed and strength to power through the winds of Temari's jutsu. He pushed through and jumped into the air, snatching a bleeding 10-10 out of midair and cradling her in his arms. Neji saw his teammates were in a bad spot and knew that he needed to provide some relief for them. He saw the blood trickling out of multiple cuts on Lee's chest, arms and legs, and he could also tell that 10-10 was out of the fight. Neji darted forward, leaving his bow on the ground, and made his move at Kankuro, who was briefly distracted by Temari's jutsu and its devastating effects. Neji closed the distance and was able to shatter 2 of Kankuro's puppets with chakra-charged fists. The sound of splintering wood snapped Kankuro back to his purpose in the fight. He saw Gaara was recovering from the concussion of the blasts from 10-10's explosive tags. Kankuro jumped backwards in an attempt to create some space from Neji, but when he pulled on his chakra strings, he found they were no longer linked to his puppets. That's when he heard Neji call out, "You are within range of my divination, 8 trigrams 64 palms." Kankuro's body was rapidly assaulted by 64 individual strikes that shut down his tenketsu, and each strike felt like an internal stab of a kunai. Gaara's head was ringing from the concussive force that his sand was too thin to stop, but as his vision cleared, he saw that his brother was in trouble. He directed his sand toward Neji and called out, "Sand waterfall," as a tidal wave of sand surged toward Neji, who was in the middle of his Hyuga clan attack. He saw Neji's attack end before he started spinning, and a blue dome of chakra erupted from Neji's position and sent Kankuro's body flying toward the arena wall. Gaara used his right arm to direct a cloud of sand to cushion Kankuro's blow as he swirled his left hand and caused his sand to constantly press against Neji's chakra dome. Neji was struggling to sustain his 8 trigrams, palms revolving heaven, as the sand onslaught never seemed to end. Around his dome was another dome of sand that prevented Gaara's sand from scattering. The second dome kept closing in and making Neji feel claustrophobic as he panted and pushed more chakra out to sustain the jutsu. His hands were starting to go numb due to chakra burns as he sustained the chakra dome for at least 30 seconds, which was the longest he had ever tried to do. Lee handed 10-10 off to the medics as he tried to firm his resolve and body to push through the pain of the many cuts that were trickling blood from all over his body. He saw Neji surrounded by sand, Temari ready to halt his advance, and Kankuro being taken by a team of medics from a sand pillow. Lee darted forward and was forced to dash to the side as a blunt force wind diverted his path. Every time Lee tried to dash in and close the distance, winds halted his advance and forced him to reroute. Up in the contestants' box, multiple girls were drooling as they looked at Lee's current state. His hair was constantly swaying due to his sporadic dashes, his shirt was disintegrated and showed off his toned upper body, and the fierce look on his face was enough to impress more than one of the kunoichi present. To everybody's surprise, it was Samui that broke the stunned silence that accompanied the observation of the fight. "So cool," Samui gasped out as she saw the demonstration of raw speed and power from Lee. Naruto chuckled, "Lee is the only one our age that can keep up with me in raw strength. He will overtake me soon in the chakra null zones." Hinata giggled, despite her worry for Gaara. "Yes, Lee is something else. Especially since Naruto's consecutive makeover bets have fixed his style and wardrobe. I am concerned for Neji, the chitin is very difficult to sustain for such a long time." Shino nodded, "Gaara's sand and his control over it makes him a fearsome opponent." Hinata gasped as the blue light stopped shining through the sand. She saw Gaara closing his hand into position and the group heard him call out, "Sand coffin." Naruto knew Gaara wouldn't go for the kill, so he wasn't concerned. He was more concerned about Lee getting desperate and opening the gates at this point. He took a moment to look over at Samui and was pleased to see the stunned look on her face as she watched Lee's attempt to overcome the odds. Lee finally managed to misdirect Temari before he applied his fastest burst of speed and closed the distance between him and Temari. He sent a straight punch at Temari's exposed chest, but she was able to bring her fan up in time to block the fearsome attack. The blow was able to dent the reinforced and seal-buffed steel of Temari's war fan and sent her tumbling back due to the momentum of the blow. Gaara got the proctor to announce that Neji was disqualified when he heard a loud, metal clang and turned his head to see Temari tumbling backward from a punch by Lee. He erected a sand wall in front of Temari and stopped Lee from pursuing his downed sister. He dashed forward, continually making movements with his hands and controlling the sand to obstruct Lee. Gaara's next move surprised everyone in the stadium when he engaged Lee in a taijutsu battle. Lee was frustrated that he couldn't finish off an opponent, but he forced himself to focus on the taijutsu onslaught coming from Gaara. He had his sand armor as well as gauntlets made of hardened sand that grinded down Lee's skin with each blow. Lee kicked Gaara in the chest as he flipped backward to create some space. Lee blurred forward and disappeared from view for most onlookers before he appeared underneath Gaara's guard and kicked Gaara into the air with a fearsome kick. Lee jumped off the ground, placed another powerful, upward kick on Gaara's torso and used that momentum to speed back down to the ground. He landed in a crouch before jumping up above Gaara and poking him in the back to immobilize his opponent. Lee let his bandages wrap around Gaara and he began spinning down toward the ground in a tornado-like fashion as he called out, "Primary Lotus." Temari had recovered from the blow and was able to see her brother in a precarious position in midair. She took her dented fan and forced it open to create a powerful updraft that significantly slowed the descent of the pair. She watched as Lee spun one final time in a burst of momentum and sent Gaara soaring into the ground, despite her jutsu. She watched in horror as Gaara's body impacted the ground in a crater that spanned nearly 20 feet. She saw the Konoha boy tumble across the ground and she prepared to finish the fight. With the Jonin senseis, a debate was ongoing between Guy and Kakashi. Guy, how did he use the primary lotus without activating the gates? Kakashi asked. And why did you teach him such a destructive taijutsu move in the first place? Guy smirked and nodded proudly and actually looked kind of handsome in his standard Konoha Jonin attire and his military-style haircut. Yes, the primary lotus only requires a certain amount of speed and strength. Thanks to our training and the use of Naruto's seals, we have trained our bodies to the point where the gates are no longer necessary. Every ninja needs a finishing move, Kakashi, and Lee refuses to use his bladed tonfa against allies and friends. Asuma chuckled as his cigarette smoked lightly. That kid is something else. It has been amazing to watch his improvements through Naruto's session. He will be something else once Tsunade and Naruto finish that little project of theirs. What project is planned for Lee? Kurenai asked, her interest piqued as she hadn't heard about this yet. Lady Tsunade and Naruto are creating a seal matrix that can overlap Lee's damaged chakra circulatory system that will at least allow him to use reinforcement-type jutsus. It is nearly finished, but I told Naruto to focus on the exams for the time being. Itachi informed the group. Yosh. Naruto's flames burn so brightly that he has further ignited my youthful student. I am grateful to Kami that Lee was blessed with friends whose flames of youth burn so brightly. Guy said as he shot a fist into the air. A soft and melodic, "You're welcome," could barely be heard over the roar of the battle. I'm sorry, Guy, did you say something? Kakashi used his one-liner to tone down his excessive friend. A storm cloud appeared over Guy before he raised his head and glared at Kakashi. You know, Kakashi, your hippatude isn't needed. You used to be such a youthful eternal rival, but I have found many more rivals in Naruto's study group. I will no longer tolerate your attempts to dampen my flames of youth. Asuma chuckled. Well said, Guy. You might want to watch though, your final student appears to be captured. Lee rolled across the field due to the backlash of his primary lotus technique. He was confident that he had removed Gaara from the fight, so he only needed to suck it up and finish off Temari before his body gave out on him. He was in so much pain and panting so hard that he didn't notice sand wrapping around his ankles and two handcuffs made of sand locked themselves around Lee's wrist and pulled him backward roughly. Lee felt his back slam into something hard and grainy before he was lifted up and lost the ability to move as he heard Gaara say, "Sand crucifixion." Samui whimpered in either dismay or ecstasy as she watched Lee's toned form get hoisted onto a cross. Samui's eyes soaked in the glory as every fiber of muscle resisted the imprisonment on the crucifix. Every flex of the biceps, every jiggle of the pectorals, the super-toned obliques writhing in an attempt to break their hold, the 8-pack abs flexing gloriously despite the futility of the struggle. Sweat and blood coagulated on Lee's form and made him appear as a warrior of legend, despite the position he was in. Hayate walked in front of Gaara and announced, "Winner, Team Suna." Gaara dropped his hands and slowly lowered Lee to the ground before he appeared under Lee and offered him a shoulder to lean on. Lee cracked one eye open and met Gaara's emerald gaze before a content smile flickered onto his face as he passed out. Gaara handed off Lee's unconscious body to the medics with a smile on his face before he went and checked on Temari. Temari was whimpering over the state of her battle fan as it was dented in the middle along one of the sides. She looked up and smiled brilliantly at Gaara, who embraced her in a hug. Raza watched two of his children embrace in a hug and he couldn't suppress the fatherly pride that swept over him. Once again, he closed his eyes and thanked Kami for Naruto's and Tsunade's influence on the life of his family. He made a show of clapping for Gaara and Temari when he saw them look up at him. He rose from his seat along with Hiruzen and Shunshin next to the Hokage on the field. The Hokage began informing the finalists present and the Jonin senseis of what to expect next. That was a wonderful performance. In fact, I was so impressed by the team fights that I plan on making this a standard for the second phase. You all fought splendidly and used your teamwork to bring out your individual battle prowess. I congratulate you on making it to the finals, but this is not the end. You will have 1 month to prepare yourself for the finals. We will use that time to inform dignitaries and spectators around the land so that you will be able to perform to your utmost in this stadium in front of a crowd. Prepare wisely and show us the fruits of your efforts in the finals. For visiting teams, private training ground have been prepared and privacy barriers have been erected to ensure that you will be able to train with no reservations. We will now draw numbers to determine the order and makeup of the fights for the finals. After the remaining contestants, or their Jonin sensei, drew numbers, the matches broke down as follows. Match 1, Gaara vs Mitsuki. Match 2, Hinata Hyuga vs Karui. Match 3, Shino Aburame vs Maki Kamizura. Match 4, Temari vs Samui. Match 5, Naruto vs Kuretsuki. Match 6, Kankuro vs Omoi. That night, back at the Senju compound, a raucous party was being held in honor of the study group over-representing in the finals. Tsunade did smack Naruto on his head for his interference with the Iwa team, but then she pulled him into a hug and said she understood. Most people agreed with what Naruto did since Kuretsuki was clearly out of line. That spawned a 30-minute speculative conversation on what Iwa would do in response to Naruto's actions. In the end, Kinji and Hoto said that they would put the Earth Daimyo and Tsuchikage in their proper places. Despite the tense topic of conversation, everyone was still in high spirits, especially when teams 9 and 10 joined the festivities after being released from the infirmary. Everyone decided that they would do the CrossFit training sessions before breaking off and doing their own individual training. Tsunade was coaxed into training Hinata for the exams and Shino informed Itachi that his father would be primarily responsible for his training, along with the hive experiment with Naruto. Itachi offered his training to Naruto, who agreed to let Itachi train him 4 days a week. He also made a request for Itachi to bring Tenzo, if he were available. Itachi agreed to the request and said he would make the request of his old Anbu teammate. At the Uchiha compound, Sasuke was glaring at everything and everyone. He woke up in the infirmary and found that his team lost in under 2 minutes and he was properly embarrassed. When he heard about the other team's performances, he was further incensed because of how easily his team was defeated. His injuries were nothing and he was released shortly after the preliminaries ended, which meant that he couldn't even copy jutsus, to rub salt in his wound. Sasuke's ruminations were rooted in his inferiority complex that stemmed from living in Itachi's shadow. Every week somebody compared him to his prodigy brother, every day something reminded him of how insignificant he was to the Uchiha prodigy and future Hokage, every second his hunger for recognition and power drove him to madness. He could no longer silence his internal voice that told him he was nothing more than a disappointment. Then, the Senju returned to Konoha and made everything worse for him. He was upstaged at the academy and robbed of the Rookie of the Year, which would have gotten him at least some recognition from his father. Now, he wasn't even among the strongest of his class anymore. All of the other clan heirs had apparently closed the gap and surpassed him, which made his feelings of inferiority overflow. He was mentally spinning in circles down the proverbial drain, and he didn't know what to do if things continued going in the same manner. He finally reached his house, brushed off his mother's greeting with a grunt of, "HN," and walked straight to his room. Mikoto frowned deeply at her son's attitude, and she grabbed Itachi's arm before he was able to walk out the door. Where are you going, Sochi? Mikoto asked. Itachi looked placidly at his mother and responded. I was invited to the Senju compound to celebrate with my team for getting to the finals. Mikoto fidgeted around nervously before looking up and making her plea. Itachi, could you please go talk to your brother before you go? It looks like he is taking his loss poorly. Itachi sighed and his hand traced down his tear tracks. Look, mother, I am probably the last person my little brother wants to see right now. I have told you repeatedly about his superiority complex. I am one of the avatars of his inferiority complex, Naruto is the other. Mikoto frowned deeply. Itachi Uchiha, you will go to your brother's room and try to help him through this. Now go. Itachi sighed and walked up the stairs. As he moved out of frame, Fugaku came to the stairwell with a frown fixed on his face. Fugaku had been deeply disappointed with Sasuke's results and attitude. He raised his boy to be a proud Uchiha and he has fallen behind his peers ever since Naruto returned to Konoha. Dear, could you tell me why there is such a difference between our two sons? Mikoto slapped Fugaku on the shoulder. Husband, Sasuke took after you while Itachi took after me. He is a proud boy. Too proud to ask for help and seek the counsel of others. From my understanding, Naruto Senju has extended multiple invites to Team 7 to attend the joint training sessions. Sasuke has refused and as a result he has fallen behind his peers. Fugaku scowled, and yet, I have taken time to train the boy. He even has his Sharingan and still is unable to best his peers. Dear, have you talked to Itachi about the training sessions? Have you attended any of the sessions or attempted to understand the reasoning behind them? I have talked extensively with Shizune and Tsunade Senju about it and it is a tremendous blend of hard work, fuinjutsu and medical knowledge. You are strong, dear, but you do not train in such a manner. That is why Itachi has seen such improvements in his strength recently. Mikoto chastised her husband. Fugaku frowned and growled lowly. He had lost every spar for the last 3 months to his son and his pride was hurt. Then why has our son refused to partake in the training? Mikoto's motherly righteousness subsided, and she appeared to be sad. Because we have failed, dear husband. Sasuke grew up as the best among his age group and we did nothing to suppress the pride that came with that. He grew up thinking that he was superior to his peers and his whole world has shattered around him. Now, his Itachi complex is applying to all of his peers because they have surpassed him. At that moment, Itachi walked down the stairs and addressed his father. Good evening, father. Mother is right and I am unable to help my little brother. He will not see or listen to reason, especially when it comes to me. I advise that you let him have time to reflect and discuss this with him tomorrow morning. I will be at the Senju compound with my team. Good evening. Itachi bowed to his parents before walking out the door. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.